Thank you, Mr. President. And also, I thank my colleague, the senior senator from Illinois, for being here. I would like to just talk today about a dear, dear friend of ours, Ed Smith, who recently passed away. I'm going to try not to say too much about what Ed and Dick's relationship was, but Ed is a stalwart for working families in Illinois. The Ed that I knew is one who was always there for working families. He was a man who embodied the word solidarity, who paired compassion with compassion, and who no company, no community, no country would ever be as strong as it could be if any of its workers were treated without the dignity and decency that they deserved. Born in Cairo, Illinois, Ed had one central gravitational force throughout his life, working hard on behalf of those who worked hard for others. He joined a union at only 13 years old, and from that moment on, stayed in the fight for labor rights for the rest of his life. He held title after title throughout his career. He was a laborer when he was young, then a manager, and eventually a CEO. But through it all, the title that undoubtedly described him best was champion. For no matter how busy Ed was, no matter how high he climbed, there was nothing more important to him than looking out for all of those who sign up for the tireless yet often thankless job that keeps our nation running. All those people who will clock in day after day without complaint, all those people who deserve a good pay and a steady benefit that should come with the sweat of a job well done. I know this firsthand. Ed never hesitated to call me to keep me up to date on any issue I should be following up in the labor world. And I knew that I could always count on him to give me his honest opinion whenever I needed some advice. Not only was he a mentor and a friend, but he held each of us fortunate enough to hold elected office accountable. He made sure that we were doing right by working families, doing right by rural Illinoisans, doing right for every worker, not just those who were in unions, but all workers, and making sure that every inch of Illinois, folks who've earned dignified retirements after decades-long careers are able to enjoy that retirement. One of my favorite stories about Ed is that every night before bed, he would ask himself, who have I helped today? Now it's my turn to answer that question for him. Ed helped more people than he and I could ever meet in our lifetimes. He helped grandparents across the pensions, access to pensions they've earned. He helped green on the job 20-somethings know and demand their worth. He set up the labor union, the labor movement in Illinois, to be the movement of the future, working towards that carbon neutral future, towards that green economy. And he helped people like me remember that in public service, we all have one true North Star, and that is to do what we can to bring about a tomorrow where every worker, every American is treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. Thank you, Ed, for all that you've done for the rest of us. You will be dearly missed. I hope to live my life in a way that ensures that when I get home from work at night, I can give a good answer when I follow your lead and ask myself, who have I helped today? And I know Ed will be smiling down on me when I do so. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Democratic Whip. Majority Whip.
Honored to join my colleague, Tammy Duckworth, to talk about Ed Smith. It's rare that senators come to the floor and pay tribute to someone who passes away. It doesn't happen every day. And to have two senators from the same state here at the same time doing it speaks to the quality of the person that we're talking about. Mr. President, you've been to Chicago, but you may not have toured the whole state of Illinois. It's a different state down south. About 400 miles south of Chicago is a place called Alexander County, and the county seat is Cairo, Illinois. Now, most students of geography would say that's Cairo, not to people of southern Illinois. It's Cairo or Cairo, and it's had quite a history. It's at the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, so it was really a hotbed of economic activity for a century. It was a large, bustling town, and a lot of river traffic made it a very successful town. Over time, the economy started to slump. Interstate highways took over for rivers, and Cairo was not quite where it should be. I graduated law school here in Washington in 1969 and went to work for the lieutenant governor of our state, Paul Simon. Brand new lawyer, anxious to be successful and do the right thing. I said to Lieutenant Governor Simon, what do you want me to do? He said, go to Cairo. Well, that was quite an assignment in those days because Cairo was in big trouble. It was in trouble because as the economy started to slump, a lot of the racial tensions in that community started to emerge. And there were terrible instances of violence and a lot of division in the community. Rallies and parades led to gunshots and arson and evacuation of the white population from that town. Cairo was not another Illinois city. Cairo was the South. It was said by Paul Simon himself that Southern Illinois is a land of grits and gospel music, and it's true. It is also the land where racial tensions had reached a fevered pitch by the late 1960s. The state's attorney for Alexander County was a man named Peyton Burbling. He could have come right out of the cast of To Kill a Mockingbird, a rumpled white suit, and he was head of what was known as the White Hats organization. That was a thin imitation of the Ku Klux Klan. He had his boys, quote unquote, checking out the county every day to make sure that someone who was a stranger, a foreigner, didn't linger in his county. It was a terribly racially divided community. And as I said, it led to violence and economic slump. 15 years later, I was in a situation, well, it was more than 15 years later, I was in a situation where a young state senator from Chicago was coming down to Cairo for the first time. I was bringing him down. And as we traveled in the car, the 380 miles, I told him the story of Cairo and the economic problems and the racial problems it had. As an African American, he said later, he didn't know what to expect when he got to Cairo. Well, our destination was the Laborers International Union headquarters in Cairo, Illinois, and the president, Ed Smith. So Barack came to that scene, a barbecue in the parking lot, and got out of the car and was shocked to see a black and white crowd, men and women, members of the union, friends of the union, African Americans and white, sitting together, eating a sandwich and waiting for this candidate from Chicago. He walked around to a hero's welcome from so many people who were supporting his candidacy, including a lot of African American people who were proud of Barack Obama. Years, not that many years later, when Barack was running for president, he pointed to that experience and said, I began to believe that the politics of hope could overcome the politics of division. Who brought that crowd to that parking lot? Who invited us to come down to that barbecue? Who wanted to show us the success of his union? Who wanted to demonstrate the dignity of work way beyond quitting time on Friday afternoon? Ed Smith. Ed Smith was devoted to the workers in that community and that state. It was his life. It was his father's life before him. They were legends in the labor movement, not just in Illinois, but around the nation. So when I saw what Ed had done in Cairo and realized how much progress he had made because of the power of his own values and the power of his own being, our friendship was cemented forever. He passed away last week. I would have to tell you that those of us in politics meet hundreds, if not thousands of people. It is rare to find someone who is consistently smiling, Ed Smith, consistently kind, Ed Smith, consistently fighting for working people, without exception, Ed Smith. Time and again, that defined his time on earth. And like Senator Duckworth said, he really did keep a tally of what he had done for people, and that was a lot of work to do because he helped everyone in every direction. He became eventually not only successful in the Illinois labor movement, but was recognized nationally. He came out here to Washington to be the CEO of Ulico, which was the life insurance company for the laborers' union. Ed decided to do something different. He noticed that a lot of predecessors had taken the deposits from the pensions of laborers around the country and invested them in Wall Street projects. Ed said, we're going to do it differently. We're going to invest in good ideas and good projects that create union jobs for my workers. When it was all over, he had $5 billion in his working fund, investing so that people could go to work and have a quality life. He was a wonderful man, and I'm going to miss him a lot because I counted on him so much. But I know that he has created really an idealistic vision of what you can do if you have a mission in life and live faithfully to it. He did that. And he also showed over and over again that he cared about everyone. No one was too small or insignificant. For him, the labor movement was not just a movement, it was a way of life, and he proved it over and over. So Betty, his wife, and his great family, thanks for sharing Ed with us. He really made a difference in our lives, as Senator Duckworth and I have said today. and he made a difference in Illinois and the lives of countless thousands of families. I yield the floor.